What up? Welcome to Homegrown Hustle, where local brilliance takes the center stage. I'm your host, Matt Eickman. Together, we're about to embark on an inspiring journey. Our community thrives on the wisdom of insightful leaders that are right here in our backyard. And we're bringing their expertise to your ears. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or simply seeking inspiration, this podcast is your guide. Join us every week in celebrating innovation, guidance, and the power to inspire greatness. Let's explore the stories that shape our local business landscape, and together, let's ignite the spark of excellence.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Homegrown Hustle. I'm here with Jim Watkins. He's the visionary over at Sociable Cider Werks. They've got a few different brands within their portfolio, and they're starting a really awesome manufacturing, distribution, co-packing portion of the business. So super excited to have you on here today, Jim. Thank you so much for coming out. So in a world of IPAs, why did you choose to be a cidery?
My flippant answer is every asshole has a brewery, but there's only a couple of assholes with cideries, and so we wanted to be those guys.
Perfect. We can cut in from that. Absolutely.
So we fresh pressed juice makes way better product than concentrate, in our opinion, like 10 times better.
Makes sense.
And so we are starting with this fresh pressed juice that has great sweet and great acid, right? Especially Midwestern apples have really great acid profile, but we were missing that tannin. And so we actually brew a sorghum edition, which is a kind of naturally, it's a gluten-free, high tannin grain, and we use the pressed sorghum stock. Mm-hmm. And then we blend that into our apple blend and we ferment it together, and it gives it a backbone, like a tannin and a body and a structure.
So that's like the unique process.
So totally unique. Yep. There's one other guy that does a similar. He doesn't use sorghum. He does a similar kind of brewed adjunct.
You literally made it up.
Yeah, exactly. We were like,
I love that.
Just like, and for us that was like, it's different. That's a different approach than a lot of cider makers come in with a with like a winemaker's like traditionalist mentality, and for us it was like we wanted to break shit. Like I wasn't interested in the stuff that was happening already. We wanted to like.
So you saw an opportunity in the space, and that's why you did it. It's not like I just love beer and we're going to start a brewery because everyone's financing breweries right now. You're like, everyone's doing that. I'm going to kind of do that, but we're doing it this way.
No, I mean, I think that like we wanted to start a brewery, but it was a question of like, do we want to do what everybody else is doing, right? Yeah. Like I've always kind of been a little bit of a contrarian, so it's like, all right, we can like, all right, like we can be in this space, but do our own thing, and that was like, so we really did go into it with what I would qualify as like the spirit of like American craft beer, which is innovation, doing strange things, like collaborating, all those things, and like we were kind of like a redhead stepchild on the cidery side because they were like, what are you doing? Like you're
not
doing
supposed
what?
to do that.
Yeah, and you're doing collaborations, like that was kind of unheard of on the wine side. It was like way more competitive. And so for us, it was like we got to have an opportunity to be like everybody's favorite cousin in the brewery scene. And so anyways, this is a long way to answer your question. We're actually members of the Craft Brewers Guild, not of the Cider Makers Guild, because one, it was the spirit and the ethos of how we started the company, and two, because we were uniquely licensed. But moving forward, actually, so we actually went to battle with the TTB over that sorghum edition because we got guidance from them. They told us that's how we were supposed to license, and then subsequently. We submitted a couple of products recently for formula approval. They're like, you can't do it this way. It's like, we've been doing this way for 10 years. So now we're in the process of getting them to give us written approval to use our method in the winemaking process. So we'll just retool it as a wine. So we will be ultimately licensed as a winery. We have a wine license right now, but Freewheeler, for example, will then become. Right now, we're paying beer tax on it. We'll be paying wine tax. Yeah. But we won't change anything formulation-wise, and that was a big thing for us. Is like. That sorghum addition is a key component of how you add that tannin. And like, there's some other really great ciders that are getting produced, across the upper Midwest, in Minnesota, but they generally kind of gravitate towards higher gravity or higher sugar. And I think part of that is because when you make them dry, they're a little bit too thin. And you kind of need that. You need that body. You need that tannin. Gotcha. And like with winemakers, right? If you're gonna make a sparkling wine, you want the tannin, let it sit on the skins a little bit longer. But like, there's no tannin in the skin of an apple, right? So. You got to get that tannin somewhere.
You got to make it.
You got to figure out where to get it. You can add there's artificial tannins, but same thing. They taste they're not quite right. we really liked this process, and it was kind of unique.
So tell me like how you met your partner.
Yeah, so we both went to Carleton College down in Northfield, Minnesota, and he lived across the hall from my now wife in Musser Hall, and so we kind of ran in the same circles and have been friends for a million years, and since we're 18 years old, and actually my roommate in college was lineman on the football team, and Wade was the linebacker, so we were just running back. And so just like those dudes were all friends, and I was like kind of hanging around because one of the dudes was my roommates, and then we both started our kind of professional careers in New York. Wade was working for Piper Jaffray, I was working for Citibank, and we were roommates out there.
Banking.
Yeah, it's like recovering investment bankers, as we say, because I wanted to make less money.
But at least,
work harder.
but with that, you're not just a brewer trying to figure out business. Like from a business level and financial, you understood that, and you're just getting it and actually applying it into business. Do you think that helped?
I think it made it a lot easier to have a conversation with a bank. Because we're like, right?
This is my background.
Yeah, well, like here's what, like even now, like now that we're standing up this co-packing part of the business, it's been really fun. But we got people come to us with a beverage idea, and we're like, so what's your 3-year cash flow picture look like? And they're just like crickets.
And we're getting money from.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, like you got to pay me to make this stuff, so I got to know that you got a plan to do that. And so, but we're kind of taking that's an opportunity approach to say like, hey, we can help you with this. Like every time we run a project, even internally, we run a 3-year cash flow picture. So like when we stood up Squoze, we're like, what does this look like as a standalone venture within our outfit? And so now we're trying to kind of now offer that service to people that want into the dev space as well, and we think it puts them on like more solid footing. But long story short, the bankers loved our models, right? They're like, dude, we can model the shit out of the future of what this business looks like. They were less certain about what we were like. Do you know how to do this? And at the time, it was just like, yeah, here's our garage batches. Like, what does it look like for us to scale this commercially? So I give a ton of credit to our first head brewer, Nico Tonks, who subsequently went and started Fair State Brewing Co-op. We couldn't have started without Nico because he understood what running a commercial production facility looked like, and we did not. Like, we didn't know how to run a CIP. We didn't know how to. We didn't know what a CIP was, and so it was just like. It was cider making school with Nico, and so we were teaching him how to make cider. He was teaching us how to do it within the constructs of commercial scale. All of us were figuring out how to run a packaging line, and so we had to really figure out how to make widgets, so to speak. But we came in with solid financial background and what we thought was a really cool, innovative product lineup, solid branding, a lot of excitement around the space, and also a great space in Northeast Minneapolis.
Yeah,
so it's a big advantage.
you guys got a great location there too. So the brand, was that you? You said that's kind of the part that you like.
So we were actually we were on a bike ride when we were kind of spitballing what this business was going to be, and I mentioned the distilling story because it really was the genesis. Like that's why we started fermenting apples. Was like, all right, what does it look like if we make apple liqueurs? And the model didn't work. Like we couldn't. What we were realizing is.
Revenue-wise.
Yeah, like because at the time you couldn't have tasting room, so
that's right.
And it's really, really difficult to make. So when you distill apples or any fruit fermentable, your cut's a lot tighter. So the heart of a grain, like a grain mash that's been fermented, is pretty wide. So you get really solid yield. The yield on fruit is super narrow.
That's the science to revenue.
Yeah, and so like you look at it and you're like, dude, I start with all of this mass, physical mass, and I get this little bit of liquor, and then the other part of it is like you really start making money in spirits if you turn the liquor brown. It takes time. It takes putting things up in barrels. Barrels are expensive, and so we're running those numbers and we're like, dude, we just don't have enough money to do this project. And that's when. Before we started the business, we took a road trip and we were checking out distilleries and breweries and cideries, and we ended up on the West Coast to spend some time with the guys at Dry Fly Distilling to kind of get our arms around that business. And we had gone to a cidery earlier in the day, and Wade and I were on a bike ride, and we're like, dude, does it feel like we're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole? Like this doesn't seem right. We're like forcing it. We really wanted it to work. And we were like, what about cider, man? Like, we know we make it really well. We had his like that background with his father-in-law. And I was like, it seems like these cideries out here are like starting to pop off. It's a totally different category. We really like to drink this stuff. Like we can get behind that. And so it was kind of one of those things where like we didn't, you go with one direction. Like you have this idea, right? Like, and the wind's blowing in your face and blowing in your face, and you're like, dude, we gotta change course a little bit. And we changed course, and all of a sudden it was like, bam, sales full, and it was off to the very basis. And this is a funny. I'm hair on my arm to stand up a little bit here.
It's funny you said that. That started happening to me too.
Yeah, we were moving Wade's aunt out of her house down in southeastern Minnesota, kind of near Rushford area. And we're like just literally clearing the attic full of boxes and random stuff. And Wade's mom comes down the stairs carrying an apple crate. And the brand name on the apple crate was Wade Jim Apples. And this is like right as we're getting the company started.
That's some St. Dude,
it was
awesome.
I mean, I'm literally I'm like getting that tingle. It's like one of those things where like, dude, we did not mean to do this. Like, and I don't want to say it was all accident because it was a ship out full of work and we had a vision and we knew what we wanted to do. But like, it was one of those things where we were pursuing this one thing. It was like we kept running into these roadblocks, and then all of a sudden, when we switched course, it was like, dude, things started happening that were just serendipitous. It was like, and we actually had that apple crate. We turned it into like a fixture in the tap room. It's one of the.
That's freaking cool.
So it's like, yeah, it's just one of those things where like when that stuff started happening, all of a sudden it was like, holy shit, I guess this is what we're doing. It's like, let's go. And then we just like.
It took just a little switch in how you were thinking about it.
Yeah.
Right? Like there wasn't much else that changed, right?
Yep.
You were just like, maybe let's not try to push it further. Let's just sell this.
Like try not to force it. It's like, I really like to surf. I love being in the water, and it's like no one's bigger than the wave, right? But like, you can be skilled, right? You can paddle at it, but if there's flat water, you're not catching any waves. And if there's big waves and you're not skilled enough to get your spot, like get in the right spot and paddle,
you're wrecked.
You're wrecked. So it's like this really felt like we were paddling into like really heavy break, and there was a lot of opportunity, a lot of stuff happening, but we just couldn't get it. And then finally, we just started. We kind of just switched to a different spot in the lineup, and we paddled in. It was just like we caught a wave, and we've been really fortunate to be able to keep riding it.
Creating different iterations depending on what the beverage market really creates. Right, THC, that's a newer one.
Yep.
You're creating different variations here, but the packing and what do you call the new business you're starting? Is it going to have?
It's still sociable, but
third-party packaging.
Yeah.
Are you doing pretty much everything from brand development, and you're making sure that it's all gonna work? Right?
Yeah.
You don't want to start with a product that's gonna.
Yeah, we're trying to. The kind of vision on this thing is we want to be full stack, like bev development company. And there's other companies that do the formulation, or other companies that help you source all the raw materials, or other companies will do the branding. And so, we don't have someone in house to do the branding for you, but we've got relationships. And we've got relationships. We've got actually 3. Reputable branding shops in town right now that have a sociable model for us, where we show that to our customers and we say, this is a pay-as-you-go model because we know people are in startup mode. This is what it looks like. This is what you need to be able to have success in the market. Like, I think that, beverage is hard. Like, it's really hard. And so if you don't have everything right, it's still hard.
Yeah.
And if you have something that's wrong, you're just dead on the ride. And so we want to, like, that's what we're trying to articulate to everybody is like, these are the things you gotta have. Like, put all the, check these boxes and then you're ready to go. And so we're trying to offer that as like from a full stack perspective. So we're doing a lot of formulation work, and we've got cider customers on the co-packing side. We've got non-alc customers that are just trying, like, this one really cool RO electrolyte water product that we're making for a customer. We're making tea. We're making a ton of THC beverages.
That's gotta be a massive opportunity in the next couple of years.
I think so, and I think Minnesota's going to be, the way that we legalized, Minnesota will continue to be a net exporter of beverages, we think. Like, we're talking to wholesalers in Florida right now that want not just our product, but the products of the co-packers that we're producing,
creating like this whole portfolio of products that really, you don't necessarily need to be the idea guys anymore, right?
Right.
But there's so many ideas that are out there that if they're good, you just help them get into the space faster. Are you taking equity in on those businesses then?
No, we talked about what that might look like in terms of like if at some point we're able to help them scale the sales part. We're still pretty early. We've been co-packing for about 18 months now. So it's like kind of our second full season. So I think that, at some point maybe we can help with that, but like really what we're focused on is we wanted to build the pipe. Like what does it look like to launch a beverage brand? Kind of with the intent that like we like launching brands. There's 3 of them sitting in front of you right now. Mm-hmm. If we build the right pipe, we can launch new brands more easily, right?
Yeah.
And then in the interim, like we already built this thing, so let's start jamming other stuff through. And so that's going to be a part. We want to do that sustainably. We don't want any one co-packing customer to be too big because if they go away, that can put the business at risk. But what we're kind of looking at is like we want to be the low minimum order quantity. You come to us, you want us to help refine your formulation, get you launched, and we can get you. We offer like a really unique service for new co-pack customers. We can do 3. So our packaging sizes are about 50 barrels. So you get 650 12-ounce cases per run. And so if you're starting a bev brand and you want to have 3 flavors and you got to do 3 of those, that's a pretty big commitment. Like not only financially, but also it's a ton of cases when you're first starting.
Space.
Yeah, and space, where do you put it? Also offering that service for warehousing for people. So it's like one of the things that we're offering is, we kind of need to get 50 barrels worth of yield off for it to be a productive day for us. So what we can do is, for the same cost of what 150 would, we can run 3 prototype batches for you, 10-barrel prototype batches. And so you get 3 10-barrel batches of finished selling samples ready to go that you could go pitch target with. Like you could go launch your first couple of accounts with.
That's what it takes.
And it's like, then you got something. It's like, all right, now take all this stuff to your, like that might even be something you do kind of pre-investor. And you go and say, look, this is what we got. Here's our vision. Here's where we're at. So that's the very few co-packing facilities can do that kind of formulation work for you, and then also get you into like regular kind of blocking and tackling of production. And then the last part of it is like at some point people are gonna outgrow us. Like at some point some of these brands might outgrow what our physical capacity is. And so working with bigger co-packers to be able to seamlessly hand that off and continue to manage the supply chain. So that's kind of the vision that we have, is like someone can come to us with an idea and a checkbook. And we can kind of get you from 0 to hero, and then hopefully you blow up, and we can go hang that on our hat of successes beyond the stuff that we're even doing, but helping other people get their stuff.
All right, so let's talk about this product then.
Yeah.
So this we just give away, or we have, but I think there's a lot more potential for it. It's just hot water, but
People love that stuff.
Yeah, and it's pretty inexpensive to produce.
Yeah.
Too.
The plated packaging is probably more expensive than the stuff that's in it.
Yeah, I mean, it was really all the stuff you just talked about. Like we went through it on like a smaller scale just to pick out a couple thousand cans of it for some events we were doing. But it's like a blank canvas out there, right? Especially when it's something that's consumable, I guess, because there's a market for everything. It has to be big enough, and the numbers have to work out to get there. So what you're doing, you're giving an easy button for people that maybe are the idea guys and they just don't have the info or the time or whatever to get it through all those steps. So it sounds like you're empowering a lot of people to change their lives by creating a business.
Yeah, I mean,
you might not think about
I don't want to overstate it, but like
that's what I'm hearing though.
Yeah.
Like you love the space, you love what you're doing, the branding and all that, but that type of knowledge and ability to go and like flip a switch and do the shit.
Yep.
Oh, that's the hard part, and you're creating like a path for people.
Yeah.
Obviously you got paid for it, right? But that is the path is why a lot of people never get to that point, because it's hard.
Well, I think the other thing too is like, it's one of the reasons why I love running a business, right? It's like I don't do the same thing 2 days in a row ever, almost ever, right? And when I do, I'm usually like itching. I'm kind of bored to death, right? And so I think that there isn't like beverage school. There isn't even really CPG school. Like you can kind of focus on the chemistry side, or you can go to brewing school, or you can go to
that's what I see a lot of, or that's what I've seen a lot, but the business of it.
Yeah.
It's not like a learning module or anything around that.
So like, and if you need, and you kind of need all these, you need a little bit of all these things, right? And so we kind of like, we went to business school, or we went to beverage school the hard way, man. Like we made every possible mistake you could make along the way, and we will likely make a lot more of them. But kind of what we're thinking is like, we spent 10 years getting this education. Like, now we can like kind of sell that expertise to help people skip some of the hard part and create something that's a little bit more, that's more scalable. Because this is a lot of work. Like I mean, the beverage business is hard. And so we feel like we built something that's great, and we're really proud of our individual brands, but we're even more proud of the expertise that we built around how to do that.
Yeah.
And so I think that I do think, when you're a startup company and you're like, man, I don't have the dough to pay someone $100,000 a year to be my ops person, right? Like, you just don't have the money, right? So you have to be the ops person. It's like, well, actually, we do. We have an ops person on staff who's excellent, who's already sourcing all this stuff for us. Like, this is just like us adding an additional SKU with your product, and that's a very easy thing for us to do, and it's a huge value add. It doesn't, you're not paying for it in terms of like that time. You're just paying for it by buying the cases, and it allows us to like have a more fully fleshed out staff, and
it de-risks your business.
Exactly, because I'm pushing more volume through, so like I'm lowering the cost for everybody. That's
the thing that's fascinating to me about some of these breweries is that they might not sell enough of the product to warrant a brew, but when that equipment is there and it's not brewing, it's losing money.
Oh my God, it's like
it happens everywhere.
Yep.
Because they're like, well, we got to sell what we've already made. Well, you guys are figuring out different ways around things there. And
dude, I don't know how everybody else's business works or what the models, but based on how we're capitalized, like if we're not at 80% capacity, we are hemorrhaging money. And so for any given week, like on our fourth batch of the week is where we start making money. If we make 3 this week, we would have 2 down days. And I'm like,
how do we make it?
I'm like, dude, this cannot happen regularly. And so it's a hard way to think about the world. It's like, man, we make freewheeler to break even, right? Everything else is the cream on top.
Gravy, yeah.
So it's like it's about capacity utilization, and also like you can wing it, like you can get close, and that's one of the things that the tap room has provided for a lot of smaller breweries. Is like there's great cash flow there, and so you can effectively subsidize a loss-creating manufacturing facility, but like. Dude, this is manufacturing, whether you like it or not. I mean, nobody likes to think about it that way because it's not as sexy, but like, so you're making a widget, you're putting stuff into cans, and you gotta do that efficiently.
Well, the sexy part is where a lot of people get caught up in it, because like having that tap room, like that's the cool thing. You guys can come there and do all that. But I've seen dozens of businesses that I know go out of business, and they have a lot of finance, and they put so much effort and energy into it, but the numbers for everything, like that's what it all comes down. Like we got to do math, not feelings. Right. So what I'm hearing from your story so far is like you maybe went to school not intending to do this, right? But you didn't want to do that. Did you have entrepreneurial spirit already?
I think I always wanted to do my own thing. Part of this is like, I mean, banking was a great education, right? Like we both weighed that one a lot doing that. I think it's a great place to start a career. It's also pretty soul-sucking in terms of the part of the vertical that we were in. And so for me, this is, I feel a lot better about making something that you can touch and feel and get behind and get excited about and have some enthusiasm for. And so I think that, and for me, that was always just a step towards ultimately starting something. And like, Wade and I were roommates in New York, and we talk. He worked on the deal generation side, so on the investment bank side, I was on the trading side. So my day started early, and then his days went really late. So we generally didn't have a lot of overlap when we saw each other, but we would find time for a pint. The first thing we talked about is like, when are we moving home and what are we starting? And we talked about all sorts of wacky shit. Like we thought we were going to run a factory business at one point, and then we were like, maybe we should buy dental practices because dentists have to take Friday off, and it's like we don't have any business being a dental business. We were just grasping. We wanted something, and then when we moved home, this is actually like another one of those serendipitous things. Wade moved back to Minneapolis first, and then when I moved back, I sent him a pin. We were going to meet up for pints, and I sent him a pin where we are. And he's like, no, send me where you are. You sent me. And I was like, no, dude, I sent you me. And we were like a block away from each other in Northeast Minneapolis. It's one of those things where once we were both back in Minneapolis and we started, just kind of making garage hooch and we were, brewing and distilling and fermenting and everything, trying to make everything, right? Yep. That's when we started to coalesce around this beverage idea, and we saw how much excitement there was around the beverage space. And so I think that I can't remember how we got here, what we're talking about, but long story short is I what it really came down to for us is like we kind of learned, like we went into it with like, yes, it was a business opportunity, but we kind of had this passion around beverage. And we thought that's what we wanted to be, and we just kind of we had to figure it out because like profitability is not a bad word. In fact, it's the only way you can sustain something long term. And so we really went into it. We didn't honestly, like, thank goodness for the pandemic, because it really forced us to think about our business by business unit. And what I mean by that is like Taproom went to zero overnight. Went to like a main driver of our business disappeared. Our keg business went to zero, and all of a sudden,
so 2 of the revenue streams gone.
Keg business goes away. All of a sudden, we start making more money on package, and we're on the distribution business. We're like, wait a minute. And so like we started breaking out draft, and like every keg we sell, we lose money, every single one. And the reason is because the overheads they carry in a salesperson. You know how much beer you got to sell on draft to cover a market rate salesperson? A lot.
Yeah, like a lot.
A lot. And it's like that number never works. So for us, then we had to reconcile, like, okay, are we going to continue to invest in an on-premise salesperson? All the promo and all the stuff that comes with the on-premise business, like we need to treat that like a marketing spend. That's really that's not a business. That's a marketing expense. And so whereas, once you get some velocity with package and into liquor stores and it's scalable, that volume's a little bit more sticky. We kind of started figuring out like which part of the business works, and then really getting into understanding like what is our break-even number down to the day, down to the case, and understanding that. And that's when we started thinking about, okay, well, this little craft cidery that's cool and has material market share for Minnesota. Like we're pretty big in terms of
like the biggest.
Yeah.
It's I think we have humble, obviously.
But like that's like being the biggest fish in a tiny pond. Right? It's a small category. It's like 3% of the total beer market. So it's still super tiny, right? So it's like we just realized like, all right, we got to do more. We got to add some other stuff. And for us, big nationals like rollout of distribution seems like that's a lot less sticky. Like if you add a wholesaler in Arizona, who knows if they buy the following year. And so we just we were like looking at the cautionary tale of people that like watch a lot of states, and those states went backwards, not just in the cider space but also in beer. And so we were like, well, we have a solid reputation in our market. People know us, they like us, they trust that we make good product. We're great at fresh juice. Like what does a fresh juice have? What's seltzer look like? What does fresh juice 40 calorie like non-alcoholic beverage look like? And it's like we started doing that stuff, and then the co-packing thing happened. Someone came to us and we're like, hey, you guys make cider, like, can you make this for us? We're like, yeah, I guess we can do that. Sure, why not?
We got the stuff.
Yeah, like, and then we're like, okay, I guess we're kind of good at this. Like, well, and that customer was using other co-packers as well, and they're like, you guys, this is best in business service. You guys have been doing a great job. We love doing business with you.
So the customer experience they had.
With us, and it was like, and we at the time we were just winging it. We're just like, dude, well, you're our first customer. Like, but I guess we.
But you saw the opportunity then, because there's more people like that.
Yep.
So how are you presenting that to the local market? Because it's like and I love this approach, rather than going wider and trying to go to all these different states, you're coming in tighter and you're almost bringing people to you, which is way more profitable. And now you have all these other things you have to learn in different states and everything.
Well, when we were just thinking about like what the next step of growth looked for us, that's kind of when the pandemic happened, and not like maybe a year early, 2 years earlier, that's when Summit like cut a bunch of their farther state distribution, and their management team looked at it and they're like, dude, we have all these expenses in our away from home markets, and it's generating none of our actual like margin. And so that was kind of happening everywhere. People were just like retrenching back to home market. And for us, like when we launched a new brand, like we got schools distribution because our salespeople went in and said, hey, you're selling the shit on the Sociable, like check out our hemp product. And they're like, yeah, sure, that sounds awesome. And it was like,
love that.
we can go make that. Yeah, exactly. And my guy's in there anyways, stocking shelves for Sociable product. So like, and then on the co-packing side, it's kind of the same thing, right? It's like I'm already sourcing cans, like we've got like
something else,
right? It's like we're already there are all these things that we're already doing, and we were doing them like marginally profitable at best, and like now we can, by moving more volume through, we can have a dedicated sourcing person, right? We can have a dedicated art and brand development person, like whereas before we were just too small to have all those things, and so I just really felt like everyone was doing everything and we were doing it all poorly. Getting that a little bit extra volume through, all of a sudden it's like
I've been in my own business.
Yeah, it's hard, man. It's really, like, you can't, it's hard to do everything well, right? So yeah, and then in terms of like adding those co-packing customers, honestly, we haven't really even advertised. It's not even on our website yet. We've just been like, it's been word of mouth, and we've been like,
that's way.
Adding people as they come in, or like, can suppliers, like, hey, we got this customer looking for, they need pasteurization. Like, well, we got it, we'll talk to them. And so, yeah, we've just been kind of adding it
Like,
slowly.
if you know that they will come.
Yeah, it's like, I feel like Kevin Costner over there,
That's
man.
freaking awesome. So, tell me a little bit about like structure-wise. So 2013, it's you and Wade. Maybe you had a couple of other employees that came on early, but like the growth of your team.
Yep.
Could you talk a little bit about how that's evolved and then how you've had to evolve with that?
Yeah. So Nico is our first hire. He like really helped us understand what manufacturing looked like. Not long after we hired Nico, we hired John Crookman, our current head brewer. So he and my mom have been friends for a million years, and John had just graduated, and his mom came into the brewery, and John comes in like, looking like a 23-year-old just graduated college kid. I was like, you look like you got a good strong back. You want to deliver kegs for us? So he started as our keg delivery guy, and then he was just hungry to learn it, so he learned it from Nico, and then we subsequently, after Nico went to Fair State, we hired Mike Williford from Surly, and so then John really, took to kind of learn everything he could, just was a sponge and absorbed it. And so it really started, one of the core values we have at Sociable is hone your craft, like get better every day. Like version 1 is always wrong, no matter what we do. No matter how much we think we got it, we just have to assume it's always wrong. And version 2, and even like from a personal development perspective, and so, John really exemplified that. He just like was a sponge and just soaking more stuff up. And so like, that's really been for us. We've got a lot of folks that have worked for us for a long time, and the ones that have done the best have just taken on more every time there's an opportunity. Like, hey, this needs doing. I'll take that.
Growing.
I'm gonna run with it. Exactly.
It's super cool when that starts to happen in a business.
Yeah.
How other people are identifying, solving problems, and creating that functionality within your business.
Yeah.
Like then it kind of when did you really see that happening at Sociable?
It had like on an individual, like we've had some really we have wonderful people working. Like our team is excellent, and it's like, and it feels like every year it gets better. But we always have, for a long time, we really relied on excellent people because we did not have excellent systems. And part of that was like we were just making this stuff. We were kids when we started this business. Like now I'm getting a lot of gray in my beard, but like we're just making this stuff up as we go. Like we're kind of solving the problems as they come across, and there's a lot of chaos there for a stretch, and then then that COVID thing punched us in the mouth, and it was like, dude, just a ton of uncertainty. And so, emerging from COVID, we decided to invest in the business, and we brought in an EOS implementer. Are you familiar with that?
Oh yeah, very familiar.
So honestly, like
you're the first brewery I've heard that does that though. Sorry, cider winery.
Are you being sarcastic? Because I know a couple of them.
No, I know a lot of them. Like most of them just run with the chaos.
Yeah.
And they figure it out.
Yep.
And they go out of business.
There's a couple of bigger ones that use EOS. And it was and they're the ones that do really well. Actually, it's like kind of a
structure is powerful.
Yeah, like hugely powerful. It's like, and it begs the question, like, did EOS get you there, or is that a company management that's focused on structure, and EOS is the tool they use, or who knows? But for us, it was really an exercise in self-reflection and recognizing, like, dude, we are fucking a lot of things up, like, and we're dropping balls, and like this adding these new brands and scaling co-packing, all that stuff would not have been possible kind of pre-EOS because there's so much chaos. And so now we're really, I mentioned that core value. The other ones for us would be sociable. That's like core to who we are, obviously, and then the other is just like a sense of collaboration. I think that's why we've been great partners with our co-packing customers. Is we're sharing costs. We're being very transparent about what's going on. We're growing with our customers, and so but part of that was like, we kind of had those ideas. We had the inkling of that culture, but we never wrote it down. And EOS was an exercise in writing that down and getting organized and getting structured. And so. Yeah, man, I don't know. I'm not like an EOS Kool-Aid drinker, but like, dude, it's been huge for us. It's been huge.
It's proofs in the pudding, right?
Yeah.
Or the cider.
Yeah.
But that, are you still?
We're still, we kind of graduated from our implementer. We're still running it.
So what's your role? Are you visionary integrator?
Yeah, I'm a visionary, Wade's our integrator. And yeah.
Has it kind of always been that way, like personality wise?
Yeah, I think so. And like, there's always been, when we originally structured the business, what we thought was, we structured it at the finished product. Wade was all the upstream stuff and I was all the downstream stuff. So, branding, marketing, sales, distribution, all that stuff was me, and then all the like sourcing, logistics, front end manufacturer was Wade.
So you get the fun stuff.
Yeah, right. And so like kind of by definition, like the brand development stuff is kind of a little more visionary. And whereas like the widget making, the execution blocking and tackling is a little bit more integrator. So like we kind of naturally fit into those just based on our personalities and skill sets. But it took it took EOS structure for us to understand what that meant. Like, oh yeah, I guess we are kind of doing this.
And like how it fits together. Exactly. I love that. So what is there like one or two things that you yourself learned through that process that?
God, good question. Yeah, I feel like there's like a million things, but to kind of synthesize them down, like I think the biggest. So the way we got here was you were asking a question about like growing and adding staff and people, and like we were looking at some of our like what's the name of the Indeed, or no, Glassdoor. Some of the Glassdoor reviews I'm working on Sociable, pre-EOS, and like, they're garbage. like, this place is chaos, I was like, you're totally right, like, it was absolutely chaos, and it's like, and so part of that was, I kind of needed to be told, like, you got to get what's in your head onto paper so that people can see that, like, because I'm not always in the room to rally. It was when it was just me and Wade and Nico sitting around a card table. We knew the vision because there's only three of us.
It's really easy.
And then like, each time you add a person, it seems like you double the complexity of the organization. And so like getting it written down, having regularly all company meetings to like articulate the vision. This is what we did well this quarter. This is what we didn't do well this quarter. People really appreciate that because like, otherwise they're like, dude, what am I doing here? Like, is this like, how am I doing?
Direction.
Yeah, exactly. And so like, it's the captain's job to steer the ship, but you also got to tell people, dude, land fucking ho, right? Like, and it's like we weren't doing that, and it's like it seems basic, but that has made a huge difference. And like, and I think it helps the retention for us. It's like we've hired a couple like really, we're fortunate to be growing and hiring. Like we just hired she hadn't started yet, but like on paper is a world class lab person to help us scale up our lab so that we can do more of the QA/QC stuff internally. We can do all the hemp dosage testing. We're gonna stand. We're standing up as a separate business.
I was gonna say that's another option.
Yeah, right there. But that was the same thing. It was like we needed it's 3, 4, 5 day delay time for products sitting in tanks. It's like it's brutal. So like we're gonna be able to. The goal of this thing is we've hired this woman who's gonna stand this lab up for us, and we're gonna be able to all of the bev manufacturers in Minnesota are gonna be able to get same day hemp potency COA testing. And it's like, dude, that's a service. People need, we need that. We want that so bad.
But time in business, especially when you're talking about a product like that, speed is like, that's how you grow.
Yep.
Right? You take something that it was 5 days, you just cut it down to 20% of the time.
Yep.
Now they can go make money in the other 80% of the time when they were still sitting around waiting. Yep. That changes the game.
Like you said, tie tanks up, right? If your tank's foul, you got stuff in tanks sitting there waiting.
It's like exponentially negatively impactful on the company.
Yeah.
To have it wait so long.
Yep.
That doesn't exist until you guys are coming up with it.
There's labs, there's non-Minnesota labs that were built for just general hemp and cannabis testing. But nobody is focused on beverage, and as a result, there's a ton of like just speculation. Like we think this is happening, we think that's happening. It's like, well, how about we do some testing? How about we like run some experiments? And it's like the testing is so expensive. It's like $600, $800 a batch. So like by having the equipment and a person who's dedicated to do that and whose only job, like we're not testing gummies, we're not testing flour, we are gonna understand beverage. And so being able to run those experiments, like we've had some people out in the market saying like, well, you shouldn't pasteurize these products because the emulsions will fall in the solution. Well, the emulsion suppliers that we're talking to all process their emulsions at a temperature that's higher than our inline pasteurization, our tunnel pasteurizer. But boy, we should probably run some experiments on pre-pasteurization and post-pasteurization, because if there's a precipitation problem, we should probably put shake well on the can, right? Like, so these are the types of things where like we want to build that expertise, and And so I think that's really been missing from the market. Somebody that like really wants to understand what's happening in the can on a beverage perspective, and then also turn it around quickly. And we'll have a ton of capacity on the chute. Who knows if we'll be able to do overnight forever? But for now, there's a couple dozen places in Twin Cities Metro that are making product. They're having the same problem, and it's like this is a problem that has been just plaguing us. And so we solve it for us, and then the same thing. It's like if you build it, hope they come, right?
So when you run into like a problem or a gap in your business, how do you think about it? Like with that one?
Wade has to put me in a box sometimes because I think about it like, well, we should obviously spend $250,000 on the equipment and start a lab. Duh. We should do that, right? But that's not always the right move.
I think we're cut from the same cloth.
Yeah. But like that's like that sometimes that's part of EOS is simplify. Like that adds complexity, and like I tend to add complexity just by nature. I want to add this new thing. We should be able to do it. It's not that much harder. It's the same thing. That was kind of the conversation with co-packing. Is like, guys, we're just making widgets. This is just a widget with a different label on it, right? This is different product. We should be able to do it.
Emotionally attached to it.
Yeah,
it's sociable.
Exactly, and also but I also have to recognize like teaching your staff how to even for us process wise, when we developed the new product, all the seller people would learn how to make it and they know it, and that was just lived in institutional knowledge. There wasn't like a checklist of how you make the stuff.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you're making we added almost 100 SKUs this year. So it's now it's dude, we better write this shit down. So that we have to, it seems ridiculous to say, but we gotta have a process for writing it down so the customer can sign off yes, we want this to be we want this to be carbonated into 2 atmospheres. Yes, we want this to have a black snap ring on top. We want this to be this label on this can. And so having those building that checklist, so to speak, so that then our guys can go and execute that. Sorry, RGBT is going off my pocket here. So I think that was one of those things where I tend to discount the level of complexity that adds, but that gets back to how powerful the US has been. Is it's not that hard. This isn't rocket surgery, but we still got to write it down. We still have to systemize, and so
it's not the fun part, the exciting part.
Right.
Definitely not the thing the visionary wants to sit down and hammer out a bunch of SOPs and checklists, but in order to get to the next step or even fulfill what you currently have in place, sometimes you gotta do that.
You just gotta do it.
So, would you say that you've had to become more patient with some of your creativity or ideas?
Yeah, and also just a little bit more real. 3 of my favorite products we ever made under the Sociable label, were non-performers in the market. We had to kill them. It's that hurts. It's you have this idea and this baby and this thing, and they're all the coolest ones are the ones that everybody talks about at beer festivals and stands in line for, but just too weird to hit the market volume that we need for it to work. And then similarly, we tried, we took a crack at a hard tea brand that actually started as a co-packing customer, and then it was Beaver Island's brand, Nice Tea.
Okay.
And then so those guys were shutting their business down, and they're like, well, we're probably not going to do this. Do you guys just want to buy the brand? So we bought it for the packaging material and tried to make a crack of it, but it was one of those things where there was the reason Beaver Island came to us to make that product was they were having issues with stability because they weren't pasteurizing, so they were having can explosions, and so we spent a year trying to overcome, tell the narrative hey, this is the new Nice. It's about we've reformulated, we've reprocessed. We're not gonna have any of these problems. It tastes great. It's performing well at all these tasting events we go to. But we also recognize sometimes you can't fix something that's that broken. And so that was a sizable investment from a time commitment and also money. We bought a ton of cans from those guys. Have 1 million cans we bought from them. That's part of why I think it went sideways. They got a little bit long on packaging material. When I was right when that whole Camageddon thing was happening with Ball and Crown shutting off their small suppliers. But it sucks. Yeah, it's remember that? It was
wrecked everybody.
It was totally
a big conversation.
But anyway, so that was sucks to kill one, but dude, you can't. My old man always has this phrase: is sometimes you gotta shoot the dogs and ride the horses. And it's we got a horse on our hands here, let's ride that fucker. Whereas Nice just wasn't doing it for us, and so I think part of that patience is also just being realistic. Was man, they can't all win. That's part of why we try multiple things to figure out what works for us.
How do you know when you have a winner? Like, what are the early indicators for you?
Operations problems, being out of stock and stuff. Right? Like, oh man, we better make more of that. Yeah, we can't keep it in stock. There's, you know, the fun thing about the craft beer business is like beer festivals. Like, what's your line look like when people come to check out a new product? Like, are people like we get great data from our tap room. Like, when a product's on, how does it perform? Is it doing better than this or better than that? And then also like, you know, we still manage. We got a 5-person sales team that's out in the market, selling and engaging and pushing new products and merchandising and doing all those things. And so we can get a sense pretty quickly. So like Squoze has limited distribution. We do business about 125 accounts in the metro, but it's going to be about 10,000 cases this year. So the velocity is legit in the places it's at. So we can, when we ask that question, like, how are we doing, man? It was like, what's your best-selling hemp product? Like, where are we in the league tables? Like, asking those questions, you can kind of start to get a little bit of a sense.
Is it kind of like the Wild West right now, though?
Dude, yeah. And there's a ton, there's a ton of brands that are like have big national budgets that are like paying to get placement, and then they're sitting there and it's not working, and it's like that can clog the market up. And there's also like a ton of we think there's a lot of product out there that's not very good from a flavor perspective.
But it fits in this category.
Yeah, it's a hot category and everyone's watching. It's like the same thing when seltzers went nuts. All of a sudden, everybody had seltzers. There was a lot of them that didn't taste very good. But the market ultimately decides, right? Like the things that taste good generally stick around, and things that don't go away.
So having that the tap room allows you to have like a little beta test on the products you put out, and it's like people are paying you for it too.
Yep.
So now you don't have to run all these like double-blind studies and stuff. Like if people aren't buying a second one of them and running down the tap in your tap room, well, maybe we don't do that.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is like, this sounds ridiculous, but like we started the part of, if you think about like why we started Sociable, is like nobody made this. There was like, and we wanted that. So it's like, well, let's make the thing that we want. Like we have the power, we can do that. And we kind of use the same approach. Like, dude, if we don't want to drink it, like, why are we making this? Like, because and now we do. But part of that also is like, as you grow the market, is like, all right, is there a product vertical where people like this other thing? And that's kind of what we tried to do. Nice is like that product. We have a fruit punch product had a fruit punch product in that line that was like, turn your tongue red. It was like, this was not craft at all. This was like just like
Tahitian.
Yeah, exactly. So it was alcohol Tahitian treat. And like I remember that as a kid. I loved that shit as a kid. But like as an adult, like I don't drink a lot of Tahitian treat, right? And so is there a market for it? Sure. But like I think part of the reason why it was tough for our team to really get behind it is like it was so different from what it was like in terms of where the vertical was. And so honestly, that's kind of a little bit of a blind spot for us. Like maybe there's this huge market opportunity, but we don't really get it. And so we've always had more success with the stuff that we get. It's like, dude, I want to drink a fresh apple juice hemp product. Like I like that stuff. Like that is, I like taking that to parties with my friends. Like that's like my friends love to see me coming when I'm bringing that stuff, right? So it's like, that's kind of where our brains are going. And that was the same thing with Superior. It's like, dude, I love Coca-Cola more than anything. Like, I like Coca-Cola more than beer. Like, that's one of my favorite things on the planet. But, like, I don't drink it very often. It's, like, not particularly good for you. So, like, part of that for us is, like, all right, let's make a fresh fruit, kind of modern soda that's only got 40 calories that I can drink all the time, that I can give to my kids and not feel like their teeth are going to fall out. And so, like, part of that is, like, just making stuff we like to drink. And then the tap room is like, okay, I like to drink it, but, well, these other people like to drink it. Like, let's see how that goes.
So you have a process around that, I'm sure, of introducing it and then reviewing the data around it.
Like taproom watches are fun because we've got really solid social media following, so like we get that up and people get, putting comments like, oh, let's go check this one out, and then we see like, when we launch a new product, there's usually people like lined up to try it, and then you see the numbers on the weekends, dude, we're talking, like we sell so many cider slushies in the summer, like so many. And it's like, all right, well, maybe we should think about like what a slushy product looks like in the market, right?
We sell those little frozen. Yeah. Are you doing that?
Yeah, we got a slushy machine in the tap room, but we're not doing it for like distribution or anything now. But it's like, boy, you can't like on some hot summer days, like slushies will be a third of our volume. It's like, holy Honda, man.
That is okay. So like, are there things that I had one until you started talking slushies.
Slushies are still like, it's like, how do you
really
like that?
for a loop. So, like, where do you really see Sociable going?
I think, I really, really love developing new brands. It's been like, this Slows project has been so fun. I'm really excited. We're going to make a really serious push with Superior in grocery. Like, we don't have a ton of experience selling in the grocery because Minnesota liquor is so driven by independent. Mm-hmm. But like, that's my goal this year, is to learn grocery, learn about planogram setting, and see if we can get our non-alc product moving through those channels, because it's a great product and we love it. And we got very limited distribution with it right now. So like, I really love that stuff. You know, if we're having this conversation like 10 years from now, I want to look back and be like, dude, we built this great development pipeline, and I got this great idea for alcoholic milk, and we're going to launch it through this pipe, right? And like, let's get that going. We have a reputation for doing that, and people come to us when they got new, interesting projects and ideas. Because like, the way that I think about it is, there's a ton of uncertainty in beverage, but that uncertainty is the only thing that's certain, right? Like, there is turnover. Like, I don't know where I read this statistic, but in craft beverage, or beverage in general, 25% of SKUs are new every single year. That's a tremendous amount of churn. So it's like, what that means is, if you're a brand and you don't kill your lowest, if you have 4 SKUs, you don't kill your lowest performer and launch a new one, you're behind. And so,
fascinating.
And then the other part of that is like, who launches, even big companies that have to launch a new SKU. They might say like, hey, I run my business through a dozen co-packers, but I want to do I want to do this new line, and I want to do it at smaller scale to test the market. Mm-hmm. We want to be there to do that, to help you with the formulation and to scale it up and to get the thing going. And then if it hits and you need a dozen co-packers across the country to fill, Target and Walmart, great. But we're not going to be the guys that are making the product for Target and Walmart. But if we can be the ones that help with that brand development and getting in, like, helping develop those new product lines, like I think it's going to be a really nice business, and something that, like, who knows, maybe like I got a 4-year-old and a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old at home, and like, maybe they want to get into product formulation work. Maybe they want to like do these things. And so like, we want to build something that, we can be proud of, and we can be proud of for, as soon as my kids are old enough to run that keg washer, they're going to be pressing that button, right? So
I love that. That's awesome. So as I'm hearing your business growth, I'm seeing that like you've been very involved and like fueled with this passion the whole time. Was there ever a point where you were like, holy shit, this actually, like, this is working? Or did you just know the whole time that it was gonna work out?
I feel like every time I feel like this is working, we get punched in the mouth again, right? Like,
stay away from that feeling.
Yeah, but it's like, the other thing is like, this is probably a sickness. Like, this is actually probably a big. This is why Wade and I are, like, I think, really solid business partners, is because he keeps me grounded. Like, I just can't envision a scenario where it doesn't work. And so it's like, and like, I know, and it's like, that's where, so for me, like, I thrive on the chaos. Like, a new thing that is totally going to fuck our business up. Yeah. Yes, let's attack this problem.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, let's go do this, right? Like, even like COVID was like, we really, like, there was like a couple of things that are critical to our business right now that we developed because of that. Like, we have an ice rink outside right now.
We have
curling leagues. There's still a couple registration spots left open. We actually got oversubscribed in the curling, so we opened more days of the week. So there's more like, so it's like, that's a part of our business that is going to be a driver for winter taproom that we wouldn't probably have really scaled that way if it wasn't for that need to like serve people outside in the winter during COVID, right? And it's like, I love those problems, those things that like screw you up. And so, but yeah, I'd say that like that like chaos growth. And so like, really, there's been 2 times. So to answer your question, there's always something new that was an additional challenge that makes it difficult to grow. And like, it's in EOS speak, it's hitting the ceiling. The next thing is like, dude, are we going to get through this thing? What's the next thing that we do? But there's been 2 times that have kind of bookended the experience. Like, when we opened the tap room the first night, there was no press release, there was no announcement. I literally put a tweet out on the day before Thanksgiving, or the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday. We passed our health inspection on Wednesday. We're having Thanksgiving meal on Thursday, and I was like, I think we should open tomorrow.
Fire up.
Let's do it. And we sent text, and it was like, there was a line out the fucking door. People were so pumped because they've been following what we've been doing on social media and watching what we're doing. There's just like a bunch of people in their coats standing in a warehouse in Northeast Minneapolis, drinking like our first couple batches of cider, like which were super rough at the time. Like nothing had been filtered yet. It was just like, let's just open. Like, why not? Let's open.
See what happens.
And so it was like that moment where we're like, all right, I think we did the right thing. Like we have something here. Let's not fuck it up.
Yep.
And then the second time was like, really over the course of the last 3-4 months, like over the course of the last quarter, now that we're like fully operating on EOS, and it feels like we are better at predicting. We have better systems for solving these problems as they come apart, and we've got the best team we've ever had, like that operating within that framework. The uncertainty seems a lot lower now than it ever has.
You don't have all these questions.
Yeah, and it's like, and there are the quantity of questions and uncertainties and unknowns are still out there, but we got a framework for addressing them. And so like, it was one of those things where like that initial moment, that spark was like, this is right. We took a big risk, leading lucrative careers and doing this crazy thing, started this tap room in Northeast Minneapolis, like, but that it just felt right. And now it's like, now looking back on some like really big disruptive things that have shaken the industry in a variety of ways, knowing like, okay, we got through those storms, and we have emerged with this great structure and this great team and a business model that we think we can scale. And so I'm feeling more certain now than I ever have, and a big part of that is like that we kind of know how we're going to attack those next problems.
And a massive amount of confidence because you've overcome problems when you didn't have money to solve problems.
Yeah. I mean, dude, like you go like the global pandemic, right? Lots of businesses went through that, right? It's like, and then they came out and they're like, dude, we did that. Like that was hard. That was really hard. Like. Right now the beer business has taken on the chin this last couple, like for the year. I think our wholesaler breakthrough is like off almost 10% on craft beer.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, man. I think it's I don't know. I think it's a combination of things. It's like I think hemp in Minnesota probably has driven some of that beer softness, new category. Same thing that hard seltzer did before that, right? Interesting, like all these other categories, like cider is just like not that sexy of a category, but steady Eddie, man. But I think it's that. I think that there's like some generational changes in how much people are drinking. I think that I think that like we as like craft beer enthusiasts are aging out. Like we got kids now, we're going out less frequently. I think the other part of it is like I don't know the accuracy of this statement, but a wholesaler told me recently that craft went from a 60 share, like total craft beer was 60% draft in like the early days, and now it's down to 9%. So it's like, what that tells me is like,
people are experiencing the beverages in a different
way. Exactly. They're like buying it for take home, and you're less likely to try new stuff for take home than you would on draft. And also like, dude, tap rooms and bars and restaurants are generally slower because I think people are going out less than they did pre-pandemic. So like, I don't know, man. I think it's a combination of like cultural shifts and tastes and preferences, and who knows how it shakes out. I don't know. I have no idea. All I know is that like the way that we're treating on the tap room side is like we gotta give people a reason to come out, because they're like, I'm meeting my buddies up for a pint on Tuesday night. It doesn't happen as often. And so
you've created other reasons for them.
Yeah, it's like okay, well, guess we're having a Dungeons and Dragons night at Sociable. Like,
nice.
It's like, all right, I know those dudes want to get together and play, so like let's do that. Like,
got space.
Let's see how that goes. Like curling league, like let's do something to get people out, and then also start thinking about how we expand our user base, right? Like, is a hand drinker the same as a cider drinker? Like, what does it look like for us to grow our dial so that people can come and experience craft beverage in a way that is not mind altering on a Saturday afternoon, right? Like, so I think that like, I don't know, I don't have the answer. If I had the answer, I'd be driving a nicer pickup truck. But right now it's like, we just kind of try to just keep hustling and doing interesting things, and
you obviously enjoy what you're doing too. Like I can feel the passion and the energy coming off you here. Like it's not, your soul hasn't been sucked out of you for the last 11, 12 years.
Yeah, it's
maybe it's the opposite actually.
It's an effort not to become the like jaded beer guy, right? Like that happens to everybody. Trying to stay positive about it. I think my biggest fear is that if this doesn't work, I have to go back and get a real job. Like, this is fun. For me, it's a lot of fun. Part of it is being able to do new, interesting things, meet new, interesting people. We got like I said, we got a great team. So I feel really fortunate to be able to do this, and it's been a wild ride. I can't believe it's been 11 years now. Just 11 years on Black Friday. Feels like it was yesterday we started, but a little bit less hair, a little bit more gray in the beard. It's been 10, 11 years.
If you could go back and do something differently in that 11 years, is there something you would do differently?
I would have EOS sooner. I would have gotten that structure in place sooner. Kind of build for scale, kind of plan on, even though if it's costly up front. I think that has really helped us change how we run the business. And then otherwise, I think in terms of really understanding our business, we were just a tap room, we were a cider brewery, everything was all together. And I think that it would have been helpful for us to separate those business units earlier, so we really understood what was driving what. Because I think that was, from a bev perspective, that's what I see the pitfall for a lot of our peer breweries that are out there is they've got this one pot of money and it's well, this is doing all right. It's but they're not really evaluating what's driving the business and what's maybe an albatross around the neck. And we had some albatross around our neck, and it took some really tumultuous shit for us to realize it. And now that we do understand that, I think we're making decisions that are a little bit more, feels more corporate, but it also feels really good to know dude, if I pull this lever, this thing's gonna happen. Versus
being informed on it. Instead of wow, let's just jump.
Yeah, exactly.
So, was there conversations around EOS earlier on where you guys opted to not EOS?
We tried to self-implement. It's really, dude, these integrators, it's a cottage industry, man. They're a pile of money. It's a couple $1,000s a day for them to come in and consult in your company. That was just really hard for us to stomach, especially we weren't making any money. It's where are we going to get this dough to do this? And so we had been hot for a long time. We tried to self-implement. We did a very poor job. And so finally, it was one of those things where we were kind of coming out of the pandemic. We had this existential moment where Wade and I were discussing do we just are we just bad at making widgets? Do we just shut this down and become a tap room? We knew the tap room was a standalone, solid entity, and running a little bar for the rest of our lives would be a great lifestyle. But we kind of had to ask that question: are we going to reinvest in growing this part of the business, or are we going to do this other thing? And part of that conversation was, if we're going to reinvest in growing this, to scaling this, we need to invest in the business, specifically on some structure. And I felt very, very strongly about doing that, and we went back and forth on it for a long time. And I'm really
it's interesting that the visionary felt very strongly about that, because usually in my mind, the integrator drives that forward, typically because the chaos is beyond what they can
well, handle. Wade just makes sure we don't run out of money. That's an important job for him. And so that was, that's, I think a big part of this was dude, we don't have the resources. And, my vision was, dude, we can't afford not to do this, because we've had some really great opportunities along the way. Like you said, you mentioned that the original boom, we were a little bit behind. We were that sophomore class, but that original boom, there's when we sold our distribution rights, that's when distributors were paying buku multiples for distribution rights. So we got this huge cash infusion to grow the business. That's what allowed us to build the facility that you see now. And it's we've had these couple of opportunities and then the pandemic happened. It was then we had access to we were able to refi our whole capital stack using one of those idle loans. So we were got our interest rate way lower and pushed the payments way out. It's we had these couple of opportunities that happened, and it felt like we didn't really execute on them because we just dribbled the ball off our toe. And so that was where it was dude, we've done that. We've kind of fucked up 3 times. We can't do it the 4th. And that was where
4 strikes, you're out.
Yeah. And so it was you can only get lucky so many times. And I was I don't want to say it's been all luck, but there's some things where you look back and boy, we made that by the skin on our or the hair on our chin,
Such a good story though. So for people that are out there that are making widgets, or they've got a THC beverage or gummy or whatever. And they're in that idea stage. What type of advice would you give to somebody that, other than coming to you and finalizing their product, what questions should they ask themselves, or what would you give them as advice?
Yeah, I mean, on the CPG side, like I think the number one is like why, like just why does this exist? Like why do I, what problem am I solving? And like the stuff we've had success with, we've been solving specific problems. Like we want to dry bubbly cider, like that.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished, right? Like, and so I think that being able to answer that why versus like, is this just a market opportunity? And like, there's been a couple of examples of like Beverage does this, right? Like new category pops up, you can hear this like whooshing sound of money entering the category, and then a bunch of them fall down.
Yep.
And so asking the question like, am I just going to be part of that like whooshing sound of money that I'm throwing in the category, or like, am I actually carving out a piece that works?
Mm-hmm.
And like, and I think the same thing, like choosing the cider path versus also being a brewery.
Mm-hmm.
That was just like being a little bit different, so that we had a way to kind of weather that storm, like answer the why, so to speak. So I think, and part of that is like, just that gets back to like authenticity. Like, why are you doing it? Like, do you really care about this? Are you passionate about it? Because like,
you're just making T-shirts because
Yeah.
you buy T-shirts.
yeah, exactly. And it's like, I think that's people can smell that on you, man, if you don't have it. And it's also like, this is also freaking exhausting. And so if you're not excited about doing it, you don't like doing it, like,
You don't
I think
have
it's
passion.
I think it's really easy to say like, dude, this isn't worth the hassle.
Wash your hands, walk away.
Let's move on.
For sure. I mean, I say that to business owners I talk to all the time, or the people that are in that like startup. Like, if there isn't passion behind it, you're just trying to make money.
Yep.
It's just about the dollar. You're gonna hit a wall sometime, and you're just gonna quit.
Yeah.
But when that passion and that fuel is there, like you don't even see the walls. You just start looking for doors.
Yeah.
And get through it.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's right.
But the money obviously needs to work out
Yeah.
for this whole business thing to work. But when it's just about that and there isn't something bigger than that, it's hard for it to work out.
Yeah.
Unless you've just got this big bundle of cash behind you to get through it.
Well, also, like, dude, no matter what vertical you're in, right? Whether you're a B2B company or a B2C company or like, you know, a direct consumer company, you're selling something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if the why doesn't exist, like, why are you selling it? Why would someone buy it? Like, there's kind of passion, right? It's like I'm selling it because it's a market opportunity. Like, you're unlikely to have the product that stands out in a crowded market space right now. Some people just like building businesses, and that's the passion, right? It's like, I like solving those problems. And I do really like that, but I've had to learn how to do it. Like, and we were not good at it out of the chute. So like the passion for the product category and for the, this thing that we were building kind of made up for that.
Have you read the book Blue Ocean Strategy?
No.
Man, so essentially, it's Patrick Bet-David wrote it, but he talks about creating a product or offering that is so different from everything else that there's nobody else in the space.
Yeah, Blue Ocean.
You guys did that, and it seems like are continuing to do it, whether it's intentional or not. But by creating that separation and just putting yourself in a different category, you don't have to compete.
Right.
And maybe you don't even care, right? Maybe you just do what you do because that's, it works, the numbers work out, everyone else can do whatever they're going to do.
Yep.
I thought for sure that was a book thing.
Yeah, I'll put that on my list. That sounds awesome. I think the other part of that too is like, if you go into a market like just for the money reason, like, or you're entering a crowded space, I'm going to do one of these other things. I think you spend a lot of time thinking about like, well, what are we relative to these other guys?
Yeah.
And and it's like, I think that we spent a lot of time, it would have been easier for us to make a juice concentrate cider that was a lot sweeter and just come in and compete against Angry Orchard, be the Minnesota Angry Orchard. But like, it wasn't that inspiring of a story, and we didn't really care for that. It's like, so for us, we talked about a lot, like, let's just do us, like, let's continue to innovate and do interesting things, and like, the only place we should look at competitors is in the rearview mirror. Now, like, that's not to say that like there's not people that are doing things better than us or out in front of us. But like, dude, we shouldn't be driving someone down. Let's just run our race, and then we can just keep checking that rearview mirror and seeing who's behind us. And it's like, I think that's where like, just do you. Like, that's where that.
I think that's
is.
really important because, I mean, no pun intended, but when you're looking at somebody else, it's not apples to apples. There's different stuff under the hood over there, and oftentimes we might misunderstand or misjudge whatever's there.
Yeah.
And then while we're doing all that, we're not fixing our own problems. We're creating new ones and wasting time the whole process. So Jim, I really appreciate you coming out, man. We didn't really do a formal intro, but this is one of my favorite podcasts we've done.
Cool. I've enjoyed it. Thanks for having me out.
You're awesome to speak with you. Obviously, run a fantastic operation over there. Lots of great opportunities for other widget makers here in the local community. So we asked one question to every guest we have on, and I'm really interested to hear your answer. So you're on the Homegrown Hustle. This is episode number 70, I think.
Congratulations. That's awesome, man.
Thank you. So what does the word hustle mean to you in terms of business?
Yeah. I think hustle is knowing that no matter what, there's a pathway, right? Mm-hmm. It's like all problems are solvable. And I think that sometimes the hustle can be churning, just running in place, wasting energy. But for us at Sociable, I mentioned that core value of hone your craft, right? Recognizing that dude, we have these problems are all solvable. We just have to outwork the next guy. And when Wade and I were ideating this business and we were kind of trying to decide what we wanted to do, one of the things, we were both in financial services, and so part of that question was do we stay in the financial services vertical? And one of the things I said to him is I don't want to be in a business where I got to be the smartest guy in the room. And I think that and part of that is because I can't control that, right? I can't control who's in the room. I want to be in a business where we can out hustle, we're out hustling with, because I have not found a lot of people who can outwork me. And that's one of the reasons why Wade's a great partner. He's one of the only guys that can keep up. Just put this sheer willpower. I'll come to the office I've been here all night. It's go home. You know what I mean?
Not good for you.
Yeah, that's happening less now that we have families. But being able to just get it done and recognize that we have to get this across the finish line. And I think that's been a driving factor of how we got there. And it was just know that dude, I'll run through that freaking wall to get the project done no matter what happens. And sometimes, and then as I'm getting more wizened, recognizing that dude, maybe you shouldn't run through the wall because you're gonna be limping for the next month. You could go around it. Yeah. What that's the hustle is find the spots to get around the wall.
Get smarter.
Yeah.
Harder.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, thanks again for coming on, Jim. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. This has been really fun. Thanks for having me on, and congrats on the success of the show.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing what you do in the future and whatever brands you guys spin off.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks again for joining us on Homegrown Hustle. Our local business community thrives because of the brilliant leaders right here in our backyard. And it's been an absolute privilege to provide them with a platform to share their invaluable expertise. Stay tuned for more insight, wisdom, and inspiration from our local business champions. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Together, we'll continue to nurture and expand our homegrown success stories. Matt Eickman signing off until our next insightful episode.